About Calvin.
Which one? You have about 10.
I know. Which one do you want to hear?
I think the one about the woman hiding under the bed.
No,
That one is funny.
well, we can do that later. We're going to do the potato one. Can you hear over there?
Can you hear her, Jerry?
Okay, Mom.
Haven't said anything
Hold
yet.
up a little bit.
An old lady sat in her old armchair with wrinkled visage and disheveled hair and pale and hunger-worn features. For days and for weeks her only fare as she sat there in the old armchair had been potatoes. But now they were gone. Bad or good, not one remained of those potatoes. And she sighed and said, "Now what shall I do? Where shall I go? To whom shall I send? And where shall I find more potatoes?" Then she thought of the deacon over the way. The deacon, so willing to worship and pray, and his cellar full of potatoes. And she thought, "I'll send for the deacon to come. He won't mind much to give me some of such a store of potatoes." The deacon came over as fast as he could, thinking to do the old lady some good, but never thought of potatoes. He asked her at once what was her chief want, and she, simple soul, expecting a grant, immediately answered, "Potatoes." Oh, but the deacon's religion didn't lie that way. He was more accustomed to preach and to pray than to give of his hoarded potatoes. So, not hearing, of course, what the old lady said, he rose to pray with uncovered head, but she only thought of potatoes. He prayed for wisdom and peace and grace, but when he prayed, "Lord, give her grace, peace," she audibly sighed, "Give potatoes." And after each prayer that he said, he heard or thought that he heard instead that same request for potatoes. The deacon was troubled, knew not what to do. It was embarrassing to have her act so about those carnal potatoes. So ending his prayer, he started for home. As the door closed behind him, he heard a deep groan. "Oh, give to the hungry potatoes." And that groan followed him all the way home. In the midst of the night, it haunted his room. "Oh, give to the hungry potatoes." At last he could bear it no longer, arose and dressed, and from his well-filled cellar took in haste a bag of his choicest potatoes. Then back again to the widow's own hut. Her sleepless eyes she had not shut, but she sat there in the old armchair with the same sad features, the same haggard air. But when he poured upon the floor a bushel or more of his choicest store of goodly potatoes, the widow's cup was running o'er. Her face was haggard and wan no more. "Now," said the deacon, "shall we pray?" "Yes," said the widow, "now you may." And such a prayer as the deacon prayed never before his lips essayed. No longer embarrassed, but free and full, he poured out the voice of a liberal soul, and thanked the Lord for potatoes. Wait a minute. He finished his prayer, he started, And, she spoke aloud, "Amen," and spake no more of potatoes. If you who have heard this simple tale would pray for the poor and praying prevail, then preface your prayers with alms and good deeds. Search out the poor, their wants and their needs. Pray for patience and wisdom and grace, but don't forget the potatoes.
Oh my goodness.
I like that poem.
How long ago did you learn that?
When I was in high school, I used to have to speak at a lot of places. They always asked me to give poems, so I learned a lot of
Now
poems.
we have another request. Under the bed.
You know the end of the bed one?
Sure she does.
Wait a minute. Well, maybe I do. I'll start it. The story I'll tell of a burglar bold who started to rob a house. He opened the window and then crept in as quiet as a mouse. He came inside, the folks were all asleep, and under the bed he took a quiet creep. He thought of the money that he would steal as under the bed he lay, but at 9 o'clock he saw a sight that made his hair turn gray. At 9 o'clock the old maid came in. "I'm so tired," she said. She thought that all was well that night, so she didn't look under the bed. She took out her teeth and her big glass eye and the hair all off from her head, and the burglar, he had 40 fits as he watched from under the bed. From under the bed the burglar crept. He was a total wreck, and the old maid wasn't asleep at all. She grabbed him by the neck. She didn't holler or shout or call. She was as cool as a clam. She said, "Well, I'll be, at last I've got a man." From under her pillow a gun she drew, and to the burglar she said, "Now, young man, you marry me or I'll blow off the top of your head." She held him firmly by the neck. He didn't have a chance to scoot. He looked at the teeth and the big glass eye and said, "Madam, for Pete's sake, shoot."
That's awesome.
It was great. They used to write real poems like that. She has another one I like.
There's about 10 of them.
I know, but she has like the village blacksmith and all those things. But I like the one about the Dutch lady and her husband who ate all this food.
My husband said on the day, tonight I got to go away. Jane used to talk about it. I said, "Man, you're gone most time. For weeks you ain't not made a dime. And of you will, I doubt it." But says I, "Go ahead, you brute. If you do think it is so cute to starve your little children, I'm glad that I am not to blame. Not this and scandal used to sing to lot them so verwildern." My husband said that he was boss from home and always free to do as he desired, and that such talk from fierce distress was nothing else as foolishness. It made him sick and tired. When he would get it in his head to go with friends, he'd go, he said, and not on earth could stop him. And if that was not to mine case, there was no use in words to waste, then I could go and drop him. And so he got me good and scared, because I never would have dared to leave him as he'd stated. And what would then become for me? And where would all the children be if we got separated? So I had nothing more to say. And then my husband went away, also without more talking. I felt like doing desperate things, but only walked around in rings and kept right on with walking. At last I got so tired out that all my spunk went up the spout and couldn't help for weeping. But that give pain me in mine head, so I put quick the kids to bed and also went to sleeping. My sleep was better said as done, for sleep was through excitement gone, and not a wink was coming. I tossed about and turned around in hopes that rest was to be found, but no siree, 'twent humming. It seemed to me that hours went by, and all at once I heard some guy a-talking with mine hubby. I saw him come into the house. He walked as steekum as a mouse, with bow legs short and stubby. Mine husband was right on behind, with packages of every kind upon his arm in bunches. He set them on the table down, and then him and that other clown fixed up some great big lunches. I tell you, Hor, it was a sight, and then such awful appetite you've never seen, no never. It made me pretty near so mad, I do believe I would have been glad if they'd been starved forever. Such things I could no longer see. I was indignant, yes sirree, and neither is the dickens. My lazy husband had no work, and there that boob was eating pork and sandwiches with chicken. Me and the kids had sauerkraut, met meat and speck and things left out, and hardly had a filling. These here good-for-nothing guys had everything but money buys and never earned a shilling. "I want to get some too," I said, and that one jump was out of bed. You should have heard me screaming. Then, all at once, I was jerked back. My husband woke me with a smack, for I'd been only dreaming.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I haven't said those for a long time.
Oh, but they came
What
right
a
back
memory.
again. She's got good long-term memory.
She does.
Yeah. What'd you have for lunch? No, I'm just kidding.
I'll say one for you that you don't care about, but that I like. When I was in 8th grade, I had a book, and we had a history book, and we had to fill the whole thing in, all the blanks and everything and everything and everything. And on one page there was a poem of the presidents that we had until then, and I thought I would learn it because then I would know them, and so I learned it. And this is what it was. First on the list is Washington, Virginia's proudest name. John Adams, next the Federalist from Massachusetts, came. 3 sons of old Virginia into the White House go. It was Jefferson and Madison, and then came James Monroe. Massachusetts for one term sent Adams, called John Q, and Tennessee a Democrat, brave Jackson strong and true. Martin Van Buren of New York, and Harrison we see, and Tyler of Virginia, and Polk of Tennessee. New Jersey, here we sent. Tennessee. No, I forgot. Wait a minute.
What are you up to?
New Jersey, Senator.
Taylor.
Louisiana, Taylor sent. New York, Millard Fillmore. New Hampshire gave us Franklin Pierce, and when his term was o'er, the Keystone State Buchanan sent. War thunder shook the realm. Abe Lincoln wore a martyr's crown, and Johnson took the helm. Then U.S. Grant of Illinois, who ruled with sword and pen, and Hayes and Garfield, who was shot, two noble Buckeye men. Chester Arthur of New York and Grover Cleveland came. Then Harrison served for just 4 years, then Cleveland served again. McKinley shot in Buffalo, the nation plunged in grief, and Teddy Roosevelt of New York served 7 years as chief. Taft of Ohio followed him, then Woodrow Wilson came. New Jersey's learned Democrat. War set the world aflame. And when the tide of strife and hate its baneful course had run, the country went Republican and Warren Harding won. No Duty-Woody shirk. He died while on a western trip. Coolidge of Massachusetts then assumed the leadership. But because I was in 8th grade, there were 2 more presidents after that. So I quick made up another couple lines. California gave us Hoover, the first man from the West, and from New York came Roosevelt. As FDR, we knew him best. He was president when I was in 8th grade, so I learned that part. And I didn't learn all the rest. From 1932 till now, I don't know.
You should make it up now, from 32 to 2000.
I don't know from 32 to now.
Yeah, but you
You
can
could
make it
start
up.
new
Nobody
verses.
has
No, wait a
that.
minute, wait a minute.
Well, actually,
Can you name the
in garage,
president
I have
since
it finished.
Roosevelt?
What?
Can you name the
If I can
president
find
since
it,
Roosevelt?
I finished that poem.
I can name him. Can you
I
name
have
him?
to look to see where
Uncle Jim finished it.
Uncle
Wait a
Jim
minute.
finished that.
When
Uncle Jim
Roosevelt
finished it.
died, who was the president?
uh,
Truman.
Truman. Yeah,
Truman.
hey,
After Truman didn't get reelected, who was president?
Eisenhower,
Eisenhower. Who came after Eisenhower?
Kennedy,
Kennedy. Who came after Kennedy?
Nixon,
Johnson.
or Johnson.
Who
Okay.
came after Johnson?
Nixon.
Nixon. Who came after Nixon? Ford. Who came after Ford?
Oh, we all got to know that.
Carter.
Carter.
Carter, right.
Who came after Carter?
Reagan.
Reagan. Who came after Reagan?
Bush.
Bush.
Bush 1. Who came after Bush 1?
Clinton. Wow, she even knows that. She wasn't even
I can't
born.
believe you guys don't know this.
But Uncle Jim's going to finish the poem.
No,
He's
I'd
got
have to
the
look.
rest
He
of
has
it.
a original rest
At
of it.
one time I finished that
He
poem.
wrote it.
Do you know that
The
poem
paper is
too?
someplace in the garage.
Do you know that poem too?
Not anymore. I did at one time.
You know, when I read Mom's history book from 8th grade, it's amazing what they learned compared to what our kids learn now, I think.
A lot more.
Oh, a lot more they learned. They had a Bible book in their public school that was like all the minor prophets, all the major prophets, details.
Oh, Jerry, you
They all
missed
see
it.
Trinitas, right?
You missed her doing all the presidents.
No, I heard most of it.
Oh, did you? Oh, that was, and Uncle Jim finished it up till now.
Wow.
But he wrote
In
he wrote
absentia.
the rest of the poem. It's
Right.
incredible.
I didn't learn them after that. I didn't have
Any of the young kids learn poems anymore in your school?
That was neat, Grandma.
Yeah, one
I got
fish,
all
two
that
fish,
on video.
red fish, blue
You're kidding.